So does narcissism equal NPD? Now, most of your clients are more likely to exhibit narcissistic traits than meet full criteria. And NPD is actually very rare. Even the folks who come to me and, that I end up working with, they're like, oh, I know I have narcissistic personality disorder. How do you know that? Oh, I've read the traits online, or, I watched your video on narcissistic traits and I have all those. Okay, but remember, right? And I don't tell them that, I'm telling you this, that it has to be consistent, right? Across context. It has to create these maladaptive outcomes, right? So on and so forth. There's those other factors that we talked about. And so a lot of people who think that are really not. And it's always a good sign when somebody who is afraid that they're a narcissist is willing to come into treatment and talk about it and willing to work on it. Doesn't mean they really want to. A lot of times they're just coming in to see what would therapy be like? And can I live life being, and this is what they believe, can I live life being someone other than who I am? Because that's what getting rid or curing, which there's no cure and there's no getting rid of narcissism. There is treating it, and there is changing those maladaptive beliefs, behaviors, and patterns into more adaptive beliefs, behaviors, and patterns so that you can reach your goals. And what we see is, those without NPD, 94%, whereas estimated to be prevalent up to 6.2% of community samples, right? So the general public. So it's very, very rare. We are overusing and misusing the term narcissist. Absolutely. And narcissism, having some of those narcissistic traits or components, doesn't equal the full disorder, because the full disorder brings with it a lot of complexity, a lot of challenge. And it is a lot of the work with the kitty. This is, if you're wondering, why is he doing this? Well, this is my example of the kitty, which I did just a moment ago. And so it's very, very, very challenging. Absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. So when we look at narcissism, right? I mean, is it all the same as narcissism? Narcissism? I mean, really? Isn't it all the same? The way they present, aren't they going to present in the same way, in the same grandiose fashion? No, absolutely not. Because what we find is that it's two sides of the same coin. Now, we used to believe that this was mutually exclusive. We used to believe that there was grandiose overt, which is what a lot of us, how a lot of us conceptualize narcissistic personality disorder. And then there's vulnerable or covert, which we often don't. And within the, and think about this, and we're going to go through the various aspects in just a moment. But when we talk about vulnerable or covert, a lot of mental health providers, I don't want to say fall for it, but there's really no other way to say it. But they fall into it or fall for it. And what that means is that here's this person who comes to you with this verbalized feeling of brokenness, of sadness, of loss, of failability, this great sense of, oh my God, I wasn't able to do this. I'm such a failure. He or she's going to leave me. I'm going to lose my job. I'm going to do this. How could I do this? I can't believe it. And all of this. Remember, two sides of the same coin. And a lot of times, and the research supports this, that a lot of individuals along the narcissistic spectrum, narcissists who come in for treatment, they come in initially exhibiting vulnerable and covert traits and aspects. And then what happens is, as mental health providers, because we're so good at what we do, then we end up we attenuate that covert and vulnerability, right? That vulnerability that restores their sense of self-esteem, so to speak, to simplify it. And then it ends up feeding, I don't want to say feeding like we make it worse, because we don't, but it ends up sort of building up and inadvertently or restoring this sense of grandiosity. And that's when we start to see it. And now you're like 3-4 sessions in, maybe it doesn't take long for it to pop up. And then you're kind of like, whoa, what is this? And it's not like they're a whole different person, right? It's still, the voice sounds the same. you know, they're wearing the same clothes, same sense of style, same type of presentation, you know, stuff like that. You know, haircuts same, but they're coming in and their verbiage is different. The things that they're saying are different. Their theme of what they're saying feels different. And if we're not aware of the covert narcissism, boy, do we get punched in the head when that grandiosity and overt side comes out. And it's usually we're off balance. Usually we're like, I don't know what to do. And interestingly, in a lot of my consultations with other mental health providers, because I do that as well, that when we first talk, we're talking about that narcissistic client, they're like, a lot of times they'll be like, I had no idea, because he came in saying how hurt he was and how much pain he was in and how much fear he had of his partner leaving. That's that vulnerable component. Now, what makes it narcissistic? What makes it narcissistic, and this is that telltale sign of the vulnerable covert narcissist, which is that their pain is so unique that others can't possibly conceptualize it. And that's that component. That's that narcissistic component. I suffer so much and so uniquely that no one else can understand my pain. And that's that narcissistic component. Whereas now we expect, I'm so great and I'm so special, other people can't understand what I'm saying and doing. So, you know, only special people can understand. All of that falls under the grandiosity component. But we got to listen for it, because particularly if you do couples work and one of those individuals is a narcissist, sometimes they come in with that vulnerable narcissism. And vulnerable narcissism is just as hard to treat as grandiose narcissism. Two sides, same coin, because sometimes you're going down this road, then you're going down that road, this road, that road, so on and so forth.